You didn't wake up one day and decide to live a life that feels slightly off. It happened quietly, slowly, like background noise you stopped noticing. At some point, attention drifted toward things that looked impressive from the outside, but felt hollow on the inside. Approval, validation, being seen, being busy, being on, none of it evil, just misdirected. And here's the part most people miss. Whatever consistently holds your attention starts to shape your inner world, whether you like it or not. Undesired attention isn't loud at first. It disguises itself as opportunity, as importance, as staying relevant. You start optimizing your life around how things look instead of how they feel, around reactions instead of resonance, and without realizing it, consciousness gets trained to chase mirrors instead of substance. You end up living in response to what pulls at you, not what calls you forward. Ancient traditions warned about this long before algorithms existed. Where attention goes, life follows, not metaphorically, literally. Attention feeds patterns. Patterns harden into habits. Habits crystallize into identity. Suddenly, the wrong life doesn't feel wrong anymore. It feels normal, comfortable, predictable. And that's the most dangerous part. You can feel this when silence feels uncomfortable, when being alone with your thoughts feels like standing in an empty room with flickering lights. That discomfort isn't a flaw, it's a signal that attention has been outsourced for too long, scattered across things that never asked who you really are. Stopping the wrong life doesn't start with doing more. It starts with reclaiming attention, pulling it back from the noise, letting some things starve so something deeper can finally breathe. And once attention returns, something uncomfortable but necessary happens. You start seeing yourself clearly. Once attention has been scattered for long enough, willpower is usually the first thing people try to use to fix it. That makes sense. When life feels wrong, effort feels like the antidote. So you grip tighter. You promise yourself you'll be stricter, more disciplined, more productive. You treat focus like a muscle you just haven't flexed hard enough yet. But this is already part of the wrong life speaking, the belief that force is the way out of misalignment. Willpower feels heroic, but it's fragile. It only works when nothing deeper is being threatened. The moment an action challenges your identity, your sense of safety, or the story you've been living inside, willpower collapses. Not because you're weak, but because the nervous system is doing its job. It protects what it believes is you. So every time you try to change your life through sheer effort alone, the mind quietly pulls you back toward the familiar, like gravity reclaiming a thrown stone. This is why people can be highly disciplined in some areas and completely stuck in others. Willpower isn't a universal resource, it's conditional. You can wake up early, train hard, eat clean, and still avoid the one conversation, project, or decision that would actually move your life forward. Not because you lack discipline, but because crossing that line would collapse an identity you've been using to orient yourself in the world. Living the wrong life often feels exhausting, precisely because it requires constant self-control. You're always negotiating with yourself, bargaining, delaying, saying things like, "Just get through this phase, then life will begin." That sentence alone reveals the problem. Any life that requires you to postpone aliveness is already misaligned. You can't build a meaningful future while treating the present as something to survive. The way out isn't more pressure, it's alignment. When identity shifts, effort dissolves. Actions stop feeling like resistance and start feeling like expression. The right behaviors no longer require willpower because not doing them would feel unnatural. That's how you stop living the wrong life, not by fighting yourself harder, but by becoming someone who no longer needs to. When willpower fails, it's tempting to conclude something is wrong with you. But if you stay with the question a little longer, without rushing to fix anything, you start to notice a deeper pattern. Behavior never moves randomly. Every action, even the ones you dislike or feel ashamed of, is in service of a goal. If life feels wrong, it's rarely because you have no goals. It's because you're faithfully serving goals you never consciously chose. The mind is always aiming at something: comfort, safety, approval, avoidance, sometimes all of them at once. You may say you want freedom, health, or meaning, but words don't steer behavior. Goals do, and many of your real goals live below awareness, quietly shaping decisions while presenting themselves as personality traits or just the way things are. Staying busy can be a way to avoid confronting emptiness. Procrastination can be a way to avoid judgment. Stability can be a socially acceptable way to avoid risk. This is why living the wrong life can feel strangely purposeful. There's a payoff. The job you hate still gives you predictability. The habits you can't quit still numb uncertainty. The identity you've outgrown still grants belonging. The problem isn't that these goals exist. It's that they're optimized for survival, not fulfillment. They keep you safe in a world you no longer need protection from, while quietly closing the door to the life you sense is possible. A goal is more than a destination. It's a lens. It decides what you notice, what you ignore, and what feels reasonable. When the wrong life is being lived, perception itself becomes distorted. Opportunities don't register. Ideas bounce off. You walk past doors you would have noticed instantly if your inner aim were different. Reality hasn't shrunk. Your field of vision has. Stopping the wrong life means telling the truth about what your behavior is actually trying to achieve, not judging it, not shaming it, understanding it. Once you see the real goal, you gain leverage. Change doesn't come from setting better intentions. It comes from replacing the lens through which life is interpreted. Shift the goal, and the world reorganizes itself around that new aim, quietly, steadily, and with far less resistance than force ever could. After goals shift and unconscious motives come into view, something subtler starts to reveal itself. Life may still look the same on the surface, yet it feels misaligned in a way that's hard to explain. Same routines, same environment, different friction. That friction doesn't come from circumstances, it comes from altitude. The mind has outgrown the level it's been operating from, but the life built around it hasn't caught up yet. That gap is where the feeling of living the wrong life quietly intensifies. The mind doesn't stay static. It matures in stages, each with its own way of interpreting reality, success, and meaning. Early stages focus on survival and belonging, fitting in, staying safe, doing what's expected. Later stages begin to ask more dangerous questions. Who decided these rules? Why does this matter? Is this belief actually true for me, or just familiar? If those questions keep surfacing, it's a sign something is shifting internally, even if nothing has changed externally. Most suffering doesn't come from hardship alone. It comes from playing a game designed for a version of you that no longer exists. Imagine trying to live an adult life using childhood logic. Everything feels heavy, confusing, and strangely limiting. Careers that once felt motivating start to feel performative. Identities that once provided direction begin to feel tight, like clothes that no longer fit but are hard to take off in public. As awareness deepens, something interesting happens. Beliefs loosen, roles stop feeling absolute. You begin to see systems, work, culture, even your own personality, as constructs rather than commandments. That doesn't make life meaningless, it makes it flexible. You can participate without being consumed, act without pretending, choose without needing permission. The wrong life loses its grip, not because it's rejected in anger, but because it no longer feels real in the same way. Living the right life, at this stage, isn't about climbing endlessly upward. It's about honesty. Honesty about where the mind actually is, not where it thinks it should be. Growth unfolds naturally when you stop forcing yourself to live at a level you've already surpassed. From there, actions become cleaner, motivations simpler, and life starts to feel less like a performance and more like a conversation you're finally allowed to participate in fully. When a life no longer fits the level of mind you're living from, confusion is almost inevitable. Not dramatic confusion, more like a low-grade fog. Motivation flickers. Old rewards stop working. You know something needs to change, but nothing obvious presents itself. Many people panic here, and rush to grab the first new identity, goal, or philosophy that promises certainty. That usually just trades one wrong life for a slightly upgraded version of the same trap. Confusion isn't a flaw in the process. It's a transition space, a kind of psychological no man's land between what you can no longer believe in and what you haven't discovered yet. The danger isn't being here. The danger is numbing yourself so you don't have to feel it. Distraction, overwork, and constant stimulation are ways of freezing in place. They dull the discomfort, but they also prevent momentum from forming. Momentum only appears after friction is allowed to do its work. That friction builds when dissatisfaction is no longer ignored or intellectualized. When you stop asking, "How do I feel better?" and start asking, "What am I actually tolerating?" something sharpens. Clarity doesn't arrive as a fully formed plan. It arrives as a refusal, a quiet but firm "not this." That refusal is more powerful than most people realize. From there, direction doesn't need to be perfect to be effective. A vague but honest orientation beats a detailed plan built on self-deception. Knowing what you don't want creates gravity. It pulls you forward without forcing you to know every step. This is why an anti-vision matters so much. Seeing the future you're unconsciously building can be more motivating than any inspirational ideal. Fear, when used consciously, becomes fuel. Structure then gives that fuel somewhere to go. Not rigid routines or lifelong commitments, but lenses, short time horizons that create focus without suffocation. A year is long enough to change identity. A month is long enough to test direction. A day is long enough to prove sincerity. Progress stops feeling abstract when it's broken into these scales. Movement replaces rumination. Over time, something subtle but important happens. Confusion turns into engagement. You're no longer asking whether you're on the right path. You're watching yourself change in real time. Old habits lose emotional charge. New behaviors feel less forced. The wrong life doesn't collapse in one dramatic moment. It dissolves as attention, identity, and action align around something that finally feels worth moving toward. In conclusion, stopping the wrong life doesn't require burning everything down. It requires precision, attention reclaimed, goals examined, identity loosened, courage applied in small, deliberate doses. The right life isn't hiding somewhere else. It's waiting behind the patterns you've been afraid to question. So here's the invitation, not to overhaul everything overnight, just to stop pretending, to notice where attention leaks, to tell the truth about what you're protecting and what it's costing you. Clarity doesn't arrive as lightning, it arrives as relief. Choose the life that feels honest, even if it's unfamiliar, especially if it's unfamiliar, because the moment your actions start aligning with who you're becoming, the wrong life loses its grip, and one day, without ceremony, you'll realize you're no longer trying to escape your life. You're finally living it.